The Great Flood was meant to be a divine reset, a cleansing of a world that had drowned in its own wickedness. The giants of legend, the Nephilim, were wiped from the face of the planet. Their bodies of flesh and bone were gone. But what if the flood wasn't the end of their story? What if destroying their bodies didn't destroy their spirits? An ancient, unsettling tradition whispers that when the Nephilim died, their souls were cursed to wander the earth, disembodied and enraged. Some believe they became the first demons, and that their ancient curse is still with us today. The primal crime. To understand the curse, you must first understand the crime. It's buried in a few cryptic verses in Genesis 6. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. For millennia, a single question has haunted scholars. Who were these sons of God? One of the oldest interpretations says they were fallen angels, a rogue group known as the Watchers. Other theories suggest they were powerful human kings who were worshipped as gods, or that it was the righteous men from the line of Seth who corrupted themselves by marrying women from the worldly line of Cain. Whatever their origin, the result was a profound violation of divine order, a forbidden union, and from it, a new generation was born, the Nephilim. The Bible calls them the mighty men who were of old men of renown. The word Nephilim itself is a dark mystery. While often translated as giants, its Hebrew root, nephal, means to fall. They were the fallen ones. Their very presence was a symptom of a world spiraling into chaos, a spiritual, and some say genetic pollution so deep that the world's wickedness became relentless. The corruption was so absolute, a divine reset was the only answer. The Great Flood wasn't just a punishment, it was an act of cosmic surgery to save humanity. It washed the world clean. The physical bodies of the Nephilim were destroyed. But that leads to the most chilling question of all. If the flood destroyed their bodies, what happened to their immortal spirits? The first twist: a curse is unleashed. The Bible is silent on one terrifying detail. To find the answer, we must turn to an ancient text that, while not scripture, was so influential its themes echo in the New Testament itself, the Book of Enoch. It gives us a window into what people believed in that dark time. According to the Book of Enoch, when the Nephilim giants were destroyed, their hybrid nature, part spiritual, part physical, created a problem from hell. They weren't fully human, so they could not pass into the afterlife. They weren't fully angelic, so they could not return to the spiritual realm. Instead, a horrifying judgment was passed. 1 Enoch chapter 15 declares that their spirits shall afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and cause destruction on the earth. In this ancient worldview, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim became the origin of demons. They were different from the fallen angels who fathered them. Those angels, the Watchers, were bound in chains and cast into darkness to await their final judgment. But the spirits of their monstrous children were left to roam the earth, forever hungry, forever bodiless, and filled with a burning hatred for the world they could no longer touch. This wasn't just an accident. Some believe it was a failed strategy by dark forces to corrupt the human bloodline and prevent the birth of a promised Messiah. The flood, then, wasn't just about punishment. It was about preserving the very hope of salvation. The second twist, the echo of giants. But this revelation unleashes an even bigger mystery. If the flood wiped out the giants, why does the Bible speak of them after the flood? Centuries later, in the Book of Numbers, when Moses sends spies into the Promised Land, they return paralyzed by fear. They speak of giants. In Numbers 13:33, they claim, "And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak who come from the Nephilim. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." How could this be? One theory is that the terrified spies were simply exaggerating, using a legendary name to describe the tall tribes of Anakim, but another theory points to a chilling phrase in Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Some believe afterward means after the flood, that the gene for gigantism was passed through one of Noah's daughters-in-law, or that a second smaller angelic rebellion occurred. Whatever the truth, giant clans were a real threat. We read of King Og of Bashan, whose iron bed was over 13 feet long. The specter of the giants, it seems, never truly went away. The final climax, the modern haunting. So, how does an ancient story of fallen angels and dead giants connect to us? This is the heart of the Nephilim curse. The theory proposes that those same malevolent, wandering spirits from before the flood are still active today. And they are the very same unclean spirits, the demons, we encounter in the New Testament. Think of how they act in the Gospels. They are consistently described as spirits without bodies, desperate to possess a physical host. They torment people, spread chaos, and incite violence. Their behavior is a perfect match for the curse described in the Book of Enoch. Eternally hungry, homeless souls driven to continue the destructive work of their fathers. When the Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 6:12, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places," he is describing this very war. While the New Testament never explicitly states demons are the ghosts of the Nephilim, this theory provides a terrifyingly coherent origin story for the evil Christ himself confronted. The curse, then, is the ongoing pressure these spirits exert on humanity, pushing us toward the same sins that destroyed the pre-flood world: violence, corruption, and pride. They are the unseen forces whispering the same ancient lies. The curse is not a spell, but a spiritual sickness carried by the restless souls of a monstrous generation. The story of the Nephilim begins with a forbidden union and ends in our modern reality. Their bodies were erased by the flood, but according to this powerful tradition, their spirits were cursed to haunt humanity as the first demons. This theory pulls back the curtain on the nature of spiritual evil, suggesting that the forces we wrestle against are ancient, intelligent, and filled with hate. It is a stark reminder that the greatest battles are not against what we can see. So, I'll leave you with one final question. If their spirits are still here, are we prepared to face them? Let me know what you believe in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden truths of our world, make sure you subscribe and click the bell.